Hi everyone, this is Mateo Vigold and I'm Head of Content at TOC Worldwide. And I'm here with Peter Tirschwell, Head of the Journal of Commerce at S&P Global. Hi Peter, how are you?
I'm Mateo, good to be with you.
No, I'm very happy to have you and I'm really happy that I just heard the session you've moderated. It was really interesting and it got me thinking, so I just wanted to ask a few more questions based on what you guys discussed. I mean, you talked a lot about resilience, which is, I think it's a word that we have been hearing a lot over the last 2 or 3 years when it comes to supply chain. And you guys talked about, resilience is about visibility across the supply chain. Why do you think this is so difficult to achieve?
Well, I mean, one of the things that we heard was that visibility is difficult to achieve because we've been talking about visibility in this industry literally for decades. If it was easy to achieve, we would have solved visibility a long time ago, but we haven't solved it. But what is happening is that progress is being made. So you had some very large sort of BCO companies on the panel agreeing with the idea that visibility has been 80% solved. And that this whole kind of glut of data that has flooded into the industry over the last, and it really isn't all that long, maybe 5-7 years, some of it free data, some of it data that comes with a price, data that is aggregated with other data, data that is put into dashboards, data that is not put into dashboards, but it just is free on the internet, that actually the sum total of all that data is beginning to make a difference in terms of creating visibility. And what the BCOs were saying was that out of visibility is coming a certain amount of resilience. So that was actually, I think, a fairly profound point that was being made today.
Yeah, there's definitely, in that regard, there is some progress being made. But then something I wonder, because we talk about visibility coming from different, sources, the shipping lines, the BCOs as well, potentially the ports, the terminals. Something I've heard as well, and it was also mentioned, is that the data needs to be standardized, so that everyone sort of like speak the same language. But that requires a certain level of investment, which sometimes is not so easy to see across the horizon. So how do you think, for example, for a BCO, the return on investment on standardization would mean?
Well, I mean, it's been a challenge because you've had a whole category of new type of company. It's not all that frequent when in this sort of international containerized freight ecosystem, for lack of a better word, that you actually have the birth of a new category of company. You've had, freight forwarders have been there forever, since the beginning of time, ocean carriers, port authorities, marine terminals, railroads, all known entities. What you started to see emerge over the past, probably 6 or 7 years ago, was visibility companies. Companies that actually are founded for the purpose of doing exactly what you said, which is finding data at its source, pulling it into a central environment where it could then become valuable, put to use in valuable ways by customers. Those companies have made an impact. They are still around. You have more companies that are coming into the picture, and so the opportunity is there. But you would also say that while so-called pure visibility companies have managed to survive this far, that one thing that they haven't done is they have not reorganized the industry around visibility. So in other words, there's been in this market no disruption. So in taxis, there's disruption. Uber and Grab have disrupted taxis. The whole industry works differently from the way it did. That has not happened in this industry, despite the fact that you have pioneering technology companies that have gone a long way to solving one of the chronic problems, which was visibility. So that's kind of an indication that the level of value that's able to be created by visibility may still have some limitations.
So, Peter, and I wanted to ask you something about something you mentioned at the beginning of the panel. When talking about moving from just in time to just in case, you mentioned it is a bit difficult to always prepare for just in case because there are financial, operational, logistical implications in that for BCOs and for other stakeholders in the supply chain. So, where do you think is that sweet spot maybe between the resilience but also keeping everything running?
Well, the answer to that is that no two supply chains are alike because no two companies are alike, and every company has to figure that out on their own. However, having gone from a situation, at least in the ocean, maritime, containerized supply chain, pre-COVID, which was when reliability was very high, freight rates were low, you could, as was mentioned elsewhere in the program, you could have essentially a conveyor belt of inventory. You could have essentially your warehouse be on the water with a very high degree of reliability that the goods would flow through your supply chain in a very predictable way. That lends itself to just-in-time inventory because goods show up when they're needed and you can depend on the transportation system to make those goods show up. But when you move into a just-in-case scenario, now you're keeping inventory on hand just in case something goes wrong. Not knowing when it will go wrong, not knowing what the reason will be for things to go wrong, not knowing how long it will take for whatever problem it is to be resolved. And if it came out in the panel that you can plan and stockpile inventory as needed against known risks. So in the US, for example, it has been known since November of 2023 that there might be a longshore labor strike. Well, there was a lot of supply chain activity that took place to prepare for that. It was known that Trump might win the election, and therefore there was preparation for that. In fact, the very strong volumes that were seen in the container market this year, and your speakers spoke to that this morning, was largely, the view was that was largely logistics driven versus economics driven. Logistics driven meaning I'm putting a lot of goods through the system because I need to be prepared for a possible disruption down the road, as opposed to I'm putting a lot of goods through the system because I see a very heightened level of demand. And so that was really the phenomenon that we saw take place this year.
It's interesting because it feels like there is, based on what I understand, I think the companies need to find maybe that the balance between logistics driven and economics driven. So, keep the flow of trade continues to move, but also staying, resilient, as that has been the word. Yeah, I think you've given us a lot to think about, and I think a key takeaway from this is, finding that balance between, operations, daily operations, but also preparing for the unexpected and trying to identify risks. Peter, thank you so much for your time, for your interview. And remember, people, that Peter will also be at TPM in 2025 in Long Beach, in March. Is it correct? So yeah, you can listen to him over there. Thank you, everyone. Take care.